Hello, everyone. This is Christine Smith, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Padlet today. Before I get started, I do want to talk also about a new place that I have found to get some great tutorials for online teaching and learning. It's called New EdTech Classroom. It's hosted by a man named Sam Carries, who is a teacher out in San Francisco, and he does a really excellent job of describing different types of apps that we're all very familiar with, but taking it to the next level in terms of how you incorporate these into digital instruction. He does a lot with Google Slides as HyperDocs. He also talks about Padlet. He talks about other apps that have been really useful for him. And he is really quite good at breaking it down into all the steps that you need to follow to create a really good digital lesson. And so it is full transparency. I did watch his video on Padlet, and so I'm just going to highlight some of the things that stood out to me, things that I've learned over the course of the last few months. And I've used Padlet for years, but there are still things that we can all learn. And rarely do we have to go to the full extent of learning an app when it's serviceable for us in terms of what we need at that moment. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that I thought were important to know. For those of you who've never used Padlet before, you can go to padlet.com. You can sign up for a basic plan, which is free, and that allows you 3 Padlets, 3 bulletin boards. If you need more than that, then there is a paid plan. If you want students to be able to have their names show up in the attribution line of things that they post, then they will need to belong to Padlet. They will need to have an account. So you would have them sign up with the basic, and then they could use their Wheeler Gmail account to be able to do that. Um, just check on the COPA compliance for being able to do that. So the first thing that you need to know is after you've signed in and you want to make a Padlet, are the steps that you want to follow. So I'm going to log in with Google, because that's how I did sign up for my account with the school's Google account. And then here you have all of your options, and these are the different ways that you can use Padlet. And I think they're worth taking a look at. The ones that I typically use for a class, and for example, for my information skills classes, I have them post their work to a Padlet because it's a quarter long work project. And so it's easier for me to check in and see what they're doing and write comments if they post it to a Padlet right at the beginning. And then I know also that everybody at least has a starting point. So I will typically use the wall, which is just, as it says, it's sort of a layout in a brick format. I will also use the grid, where you can arrange content in rows. And I created a Padlet for what students are reading this week in middle school, and this is the format that I used. And then the one that I really like is the shelf. I typically use this, especially as I said, for information skills and tech core, because then I can, in each column, create either the name of the project that I want them to post there, the date of the project, the quarter in which we're working. So it allows for a lot of great organization under that shelf format. A couple of things that I picked up, of course, is the back channel, which is a great way if you want to just do sort of a chat environment. And finally, the map, which I discovered when we were getting ready to do the Quahog Cup. And one of the activities in the past had relied upon a paper map. And we were able to find that this was a great interactive way for students to be able to locate a place, type in what they knew about it, add some information. So it was a nice addition. And again, something new that I learned over the course of our distance learning about Padlet. For the purposes of this demonstration, I am going to use the grid format. So they're starting my Padlet, and you can customize your Padlet. I'm going to call this my Padlet tutorial. And I am going to say it's for the Tutorial Tuesday. And then down here, you can start to customize it. So you can customize the appearance. You can do pictures, textures, gradients. I particularly like solid colors, and I particularly like bright solid colors because I just think it's a nice contrast for the background. You can also, or you can add your own. If you have an image that you would prefer to put in as the background image, you can add it right from there. Then over here, as I continue, this is where I was talking about the attribution, where it says display the author name above each post. That can only happen if you have an account in Padlet. And that's where we go back to that idea of having students sign up for accounts. And I would say that this is why the eighth graders can use it for their digital portfolios. I'm sure they're quite proficient with this now. I would also say, that you really need to maybe run this by the tech office to see at what grade level or at what age level they would think it would be okay for you to have the students sign up for accounts. You can enable comments, which is really a great way to get student feedback on a project or on a quick book review or something. Of course, you'd have to set classroom guidelines in terms of what the comments should be, how they should conduct themselves in an online environment when they're commenting on other people's work or contributions. You can also have reactions, which they can like, they can vote, they can put a star, give it a grade. For the most part, I leave it on none simply because I think that can become somewhat competitive. How many people like your post? And we all know that on social media that can be sort of daunting and maybe a little damaging if you know there are more popular posts than others. So I just leave that off to not encourage that. And then you can decide to require approval depending on your topic that you're covering with your students. You may want to make sure that you get a quick read of something before it goes public, and that's fine. It also means that you have to be moderating the Padlet so that you don't get a backlog of things that need to be posted. One of the things that I like about Padlet for me is the immediacy of being able to just pull it up there and see who's already posted to it and be able to address any posting problems in terms of if they've put the right link in or if the video isn't working. But you can certainly require approval if that's what you would prefer to do. And then you can go to next, and you are really ready to start posting. There are, however, some other things that you may want to do. So over here, for example, you can invite certain people, and I'm just going to put in a name that I know is in here, has a person who has an account. Just to show you now, Becca Hunsker and I work together on the Folklore Fair Padlets, so I know she's here, and I can then give her permission to do any number of things on the Padlet. I can set it so she can only read it, that she can write on it, she could edit it, where she could view and edit and approve other posts, or she could administer and she could modify the whole thing. And typically, because we are working together on the Folklore Fair Padlet, she becomes an administrator on it. And so that I will save. And then the next thing that I want to take a look at is the privacy settings. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to look at share or embed. And this is where you can set up your privacy. Now, visitors can write because I do want the students to be able to post things to the Padlet. But I also want to make sure that it's somewhat protected. And so for the purposes of pretty much everything that I set up now, I do use a password. And I will, for example, I'll just pick an easy one here and let the students know what it is. But this way, it's not quite as wide open. Somebody like who doesn't have access to this or doesn't have access to the password wouldn't be able to get to the Padlet and be able to add to it. So it's just another layer of privacy and security that I like to add. And so I will save that. And now I'm ready to start posting. And this it says password protected. It gives me lots of different ways that I can share it down here. One of them is you can share right on a Google Classroom, which is really helpful to me because what I do is I typically will choose a Google Classroom like the Tech Core class, and I will just post it. I'll choose an action. In this case, I'll just create material, and then I can just say go, and here it is. And now I can add all the specifics to what I want them to be able to post to the Padlet, but it's right there. So I find this really helpful. And as I said, it's a easier way for me to keep track of an ongoing project than just having them share it with me from Google, or the fact that with an assignment, they'd have to turn it in. This way I can see it before the assignment due date. So I'm going to click away from that, but that's a good thing to know. Of course, there are lots of other ways you can embed it, and you can copy the link to a clipboard, which I typically will do also. And with all of those sharing settings and privacy settings in place, I'm going to go over and just take a look. So as you probably know, and this looks very googly, is you can add from here. And this is where your post happens. Now, this is what I'm talking about right here. You see, because I have an account in Padlet, my name shows up in the attribution line. What we found with the folklore fair is for those students who didn't, it just said anonymous. So one way that you can, it doesn't look as uniform and it doesn't look as nice. And that's one of the things we have to consider with the folklore fair being more forward facing now, especially with it being the only place that people could take a look at these projects and presentations. But what I would typically do is have a student type in the title of their project, which, I could just say Tenement Museum, which if you haven't been there and if they reopen, it's definitely worth going to see. And because I don't have their name necessarily in the attribution line, I will ask them to put their names. And sometimes this works out well too, because if I have more than one person collaborating on a project, then they put all of their names there. And I can see immediately, like if I've got 16 kids in my tech core class, but we're working on 6 topics, I can see who's involved in each topic because it's right there where it says to write something. Now, these are all of the things that you can add to a Padlet post. First, you can upload something if you want to. If you have a picture saved, if you have something else that you want to upload, you can do that here. This is where you would post a link. And for sharing something from your drive, for example, I would go like this to be read and go to share. And what I would want to do is make sure I can open this up and set the sharing settings with anyone with the link. It just makes it easier to see the face of the document once you post it. So I'm going to go back over here to the Padlet tutorial. I'm going to paste the link here, and then I'm going to save it. And if I've copied the link correctly, then what it should do is show up on the as the post, so you can see it right here. And then after I'm done, I can expand on it again. I can go back. So when I go to, let's see, click outside of this, and I want to take a look at it, and I want to expand the post and view the original, I can get back to the original. So that's one way that you can use it, but there are so many other things that you can do. So I'm going to exit out of this and I'm going to create another post. And this time I'm going to call this covers and my name here again. Or I can describe the project this time if I want to for summer reading. And then I can go here and search Google. And I could put in Coyote Sunrise and see if something comes up. And here's the book title that I'm interested in. So I am just going to click on this and bring it over, click on it, and there it is. So I did that as a Google search. Now, as another thing so I'm going to click outside of that and add another post. And then these are some of the other things that you can do here. You can upload a picture. You can link and enter a URL. I did the Google search thing because you see the little search bar. You can snap a picture using your camera. You can capture video. So if you wanted, like right now, I could do a video of myself talking to you. This is sort of interesting, the voice recording thing. So you have to allow your microphone, but you can see that right now I'm talking about this Padlet tutorial in the audio booth. And this has some real benefits. It could be a great way to do a really quick interview with somebody. It can be up to 15 minutes long. If you wanted to have your students try their hand at some sort of podcasting, this could be a very easy way to do it, to have them interview each other, to interview other people, and then post it here. And I found this whole great lesson plan on the New York Times about how to teach about writing a script and doing podcasting. And then you could post it right here on the Padlet, and then you could share the Padlet for people that you want to be able to hear the podcast. So this is a great option. And so there are lots of things that you can do from this menu. You can draw if you want to. This is where we talked about a place location, and you can search for a place. Let's say Phoenix, Arizona, and search. And I think I could do a road, I could do terrain, I could do a hybrid, and then I can save it. And there it is, right there. And then I can say Phoenix, Arizona, and future trip, hopefully to get back there. All right, so there's another one. And as I was saying with the audio situation, so we'll go to the voice and we'll talk about this. And here's your default microphone. And I start recording right here. So, as I said, you could do podcasts, you could do any sort of an interview, you could just have them do a verbal response to a reading, and then you would save it. You could play it back and save if you wanted to, and then just save it right here. And it's all on the Padlet. Now, these are things that I'm showing you because I never realized all of the capabilities of this. But look at the different things that you can do. Shared a document, shared an image that I'm creating a summer reading tutorial or Padlet, looked at locations on a map. I mean, you could do a virtual tour using Padlet. And then finally, and this I think is really key, we do a lot of interviewing. I know the Folklore Fair does, I know Cityside does. This could be a very easy way of capturing it in one place, organizing it. It has a lot of great potential. So those are some of the tips and tricks that I've learned about Padlet over the course of this distance learning. If you have any questions, want some help setting one up, just want to give it a try, I would be happy to help. And I've been thankful for this time to be able to further explore technologies that I sometimes don't have the time to work on. But the demand for our teaching and learning during this time has really given me the opportunity to become more proficient and more knowledgeable about apps that I've always found to be really useful and helpful. Thank you, and I hope you have a great day.